Hi everyone, I'm Mr. Ori. This is my zoology class. We are about to dissect a dogfish shark. It is a cartilaginous fish, so its bones are made from cartilage. This is in conjunction with a comparison we are doing with a bony fish, like a perch. We did that lab last week. This week we're going to be doing a comparison to this other type of fish that's made from cartilage. Today's objective is to review our external anatomy as we viewed yesterday, and to open our shark and begin to look at its internal anatomy. That's where we are today. So, first and foremost, let's do a review. Goggles, please. Okay, we're going to do a review of the internal anatomy, or the external anatomy. All right, so this specimen is one that was pre-opened, so we're going to go through this stuff. As a reminder, we have to know our anatomical terminology. Okay, positions. Towards the head of the animal is called what? What's the vocabulary word that means the front of the animal here? The A word.
Anterior.
Anterior. All right, anterior of the animal. Versus the opposite, which is
Posterior.
Posterior. What are the additional terms that we talked about? What's a synonym for considering like the head? What's the word? Anterior. Starts with a C.
Cranial.
The cranial. Okay, this is we say this is the cranial end, and this is the end with the tail. What's the C word that means tail?
Oh, sorry.
What's this fin?
Caudal.
Caudal fin. Good. So cranial, caudal. Okay. The side. What's this fin called?
Dorsal.
Dorsal fin. This is the dorsal aspect of the animal, versus the belly side, which is the ventral. Okay, so we know the difference between those. Okay, if we're looking at the side of the animal, it's a vocabulary word that started with the letter L. This is the blank.
Lateral.
Lateral. Okay, down the middle, what's the M word? Down the middle. Okay, strike one there. Medial. Okay, medial down the middle. Okay, medial. All right. One extra set of words that we have to discuss, because this will come up in the lab. Considering like an appendage like this fin. This fin is attached to the torso of it, or the trunk of the animal. The closer we are to the body of the animal, or the trunk, we call this the proximal part, versus towards the outside, we call the distal part. So proximal end, distal end. Okay, if we're talking about us, we could say that our elbow is more proximal than our hand. Okay, because it is closer to the trunk of our body. Okay, our fingers are the most distal part of our arm. Okay, so those are words that we also have to understand the process here. Okay, everybody's good so far? All right. Some of the anatomy that we reviewed yesterday, up and around the head. Let's remember that, the obvious parts, the snout area, the rostrum. Okay, what was its job to protect?
Your eyes.
Okay, it protects the eyes, it protects the mouth, and it protects what's over in here. What other sense? Okay, where the nostrils are, or the external areas protecting the nerves that are responsible for smell. Okay, so that's all that in the front. Obviously, we saw the eyes, we saw the nostrils on the other side, we see the mouth. Okay, behind the eyes are these two openings on the head. It was the word that started with S. Does anyone remember it without looking? What these organs were, the openings in the top of the head. It's only been one day. I'm not killing you over this.
No.
Okay. These openings were called spiracles. Okay, and these aid in water flow. Okay, remember, sharks can't breathe unless their mouth is open. Okay, water flows in, it comes across the gills. Remember, these are the gill slits on the side. So the connection comes this way. This is also a point that water can be expelled, hence drawing more water into the mouth. So it acts like a negative pressure draw. Okay, that's what the job of this guy is. All right. Remember, what's the thing that goes down the whole line of all fish that helps in sensing pressure differences? The lateral line. Okay, remember, that's why it's important we know the anatomical term. Lateral, that gives you the clue away. Remember, that senses vibration in the water and helping the shark or any fish determine where any potential prey or predator might be. Okay, one thing I didn't mention, remember, we talked about these little, what it looked like the shark having a little 4 o'clock shadow there, had these little pores that were up and around the front. Remember we talked about that? What did it sense? What were they responsible for sensing? Electricity. All right, remember, coolest thing about sharks, they sense electrical discharge in the water. They can sense where things are from miles away in some cases, all right? And these are these nodes of Lorenzini. They're all over the facial area of the shark, okay? The fins, okay, as we comparing it to the perch, we had the fins that were similar were the dorsal fins, anterior and posterior. The pectoral fins, okay, pectoral meaning chest, remember? The pelvic fins, okay? And the caudal fin, okay? The difference that we said yesterday about the caudal fin of this is what?
One end is short.
One end is shorter rather than longer, and this, what was the job of this larger one? To stabilize the shark in the water. So if that's not there, otherwise it would rotate, it would over-rotate, okay? So that's basically our external anatomy here. Any questions about that? Here for a little bit. Now, in your Google Classroom, you find that lab, okay? It's posted as of today. It's in PDF format, okay? I will provide you with the written portion of it by tomorrow in a Google Doc format that you can enter your answers in as you go through the lab. Today's focus is actually on page 14. What we want to get to the internal anatomy. So I'm going to go there real fast and put that up so we have a visual, and we'll be right back. All right, guys. In preparation for our opening our shark, we're going to utilize this diagram first. This is on page 7 of the lab guide. This is showing us the dotted lines where we want to open our shark. The company we got the sharks from did a pre-opening. There is a small area in the middle that is already open, so they can dye it with red and yellow dyes for different systems. So we're going to follow and add to what has already been done for you and open the shark up fully so we can view everything on the internal. Your cut that you have is approximately in the middle of the shark, okay? What we want to do is extend that cut all the way posteriorly, just anterior of the pelvic fins. We want to extend it anteriorly up towards the mouth. When you get up around where the gill slits are, you're going to find a piece of cartilage that's there to protect the heart. We're going to need to get over that and up beyond that to be able to expose the pectoral cavity and see the heart, okay, and the pericardial cavity, I should say. So that's going to be one of the harder parts of your opening. You'll notice that there are vertical releasing flaps that need to be made. That is so you can fold the shark open, its body wall, and be able to put it back so you can see all the internal organs in all of their splendor. Okay, so on this specimen here, this is our new specimen. This one is a pre-opened one, so we're going to show you here that when they're shipped from the company, they put a zip tie around the middle here. The larger the specimen, the more. Some of them today had 2 of them. This one only has 1. We're going to have to remove that so we have access to the sealant. So this is a simple cut. It is a zip tie, so just be careful as you cut through it that it doesn't pop in your face. Just cover it with your hand. Okay. Yep, it's hard plastic. So get under it a little bit. There you go. Use a little more force. Very simple. Dispose of that. Okay. Now in the pre-cut, you can see that it's only about the middle 1/3 of the animal is open. So let's just shift attention here so you can take a look at how this is going to be furthered. All right, you can see here the evidence that this was gripped by two zip ties. So I had 2 of these to cut through, and the approximate start was from here to here. To complete this opening anteriorly and posteriorly, we just want to go along the mid-sagittal line and bring it far forward as possible. Right underneath the ventral surface here, there is a piece of bone, it's actually cartilage, that protects the heart. Okay, if you feel on this specimen, you'll feel that there's a hard part right here. Okay, feel that?
Yeah.
Okay. Right there is going to be the hardest part of the dissection opening this, because that's where we have to get through the cartilage. It takes a little bit of force. Okay, but you want to continue this cut anteriorly as far as you can, because underneath here is going to be your heart, and we want to be able to expose that. Okay, posteriorly, we want to go down between the pelvic fins as much as possible and get as close down to the cloaca, or the common urogenital opening here at the end, so we can view the attachments of all the 3 systems that empty there. All right. You'll notice here that there are reflecting flaps vertically that will allow the specimen or the body wall of the specimen to be reflected to either side. Okay, same thing anteriorly. Okay, we just want to be able to pull it open. Okay, I'm going to save the grandeur for this opening. I'm going to give this one away. So we're just going to do a little demonstration on this one here. So
You're good.
we're still rolling.
Yeah.
So to do this, it's best done by two operators. One person should be towards the head of the animal, and if you want to start towards the anterior, and just hold the animal in a position where it's available. Remember, as always, we want to insert our scissors into the opening and cut upwards, only cutting the body wall, not cutting any organs inside. The secondary person can then, as the cutting is going, put your fingers inside the body wall and just put a little gentle pressure outwards. It makes the cut very much easier. Okay, we're cutting through skin and we're cutting through. All right, so now we're approximating where the cartilage is. If I stick my finger in here, I got up to about here is where the cavity ends. Okay, so I got about a fingertip, got about this much room to go. All right, so and that's going to reach the anterior body wall of the abdominal cavity. So we have to get through that. So the best way to do this, if you have your secondary person put some pressure with your tips of your fingers and push outward, that you can get through this a lot easier. It's just snip. Now see if you can get down. Now you're cutting just through. You cut over it. Now you should be able to expose a little bit more. Cut through. There you go. Wow. See, as soon as with my pressure and that snip, it opened up very easily. If you do it by yourself, you're going to struggle to get through it. So use a little bit of pressure, a little bit of force to do that. Okay, now we've cut through. We're getting up into the pericardial cavity. Okay, that should be good on that. Now if you get a good camera view in there, you can see we've exposed the heart. All right. Now, if I put my finger in again, I got room up in here at the roof of the cavity. We have some tissue that's in here, some connective tissue that walls off the cavities. Okay, these are dividing lines. Remember we talked about segmentation a lot through all the early dissections. This is evidence of segmentation. Remember back to the earthworm. When you cut it open, you saw each segment. They had a dividing part of each segment called a septum. This is a septum. Okay, that's a divider between cavities. All right. So in this case, we want to take the scissors and just cut a little bit more, just on this connective tissue. Snip it a little bit. Okay, so you can have a clearer view of the upper part of the circulatory system. Okay, that should be good. All right, now to aid in pushing this body wall back, you're going to make a horizontal or a vertical incision kind of through the ribbed area here. Here's the major cartilage structure here. Just go right behind it, posterior to it. There's the gill slits. Just make a cut right up to the edge of this gill slit here. Okay, and as you see, if I pull on it, you can see how the body wall comes into view there. You can cut this piece here, that septum. Okay, now look how easy it reflected. Okay, now I can see into the cavity nicely. Okay, you can do the same on the other side. Okay, notice how I am allowing the person dissecting to have their optimal view, and I become secondary. It's like you're being a surgical assistant. Okay, you're preparing the field for the surgeon. All right, so this should be good enough for your anterior opening. Okay, we'll turn our attention now to the posterior. So you're going to be cutting. You want to be cut. Always want to cut away from you. Remember that was like lesson 1. Yeah, cut away from yourself. Yeah. All right. Ooh, little shark guts. Not going to kill anybody. Sure. All right. So we're going to continue this all the way. We're going to try to cut down here. Similarly, down here there's some bone, some quote unquote bone. We know it's made from cartilage. It's not bone, but we're going to kind of call them bones, right? This is the what we call the pelvic girdle of bone. It's holding the pelvic fins in place. These become legs as we progress through the vertebrates. Okay, obviously with the aquatic animal, they're fins, but the structure interiorly of the bones is set up so as evolution moves on. These develop into terrestrial appendages, aka arms and legs. All right, so we want to get through this. Similarly, cut the body wall as you did before. Okay. And once you get a start on this, you can get your fingers in and you can help. That's it, right there. One more, just a little bit right there. Okay, now we open that up so we can now see. Try not just actually, yeah, that one little top part. That's it. I want you to be able to see the opening to the cloaca into the body cavity, and you can see how things come down into that cavity, so you can view them. All right, now for the reflecting flaps, we can go right in here, and you're just going to cut straight up to the top of the body wall. Now I want to keep this here so you can still see some of the connections, so I'm not going to go crazy with that. But you can see now I can pull back on the body wall, and I can expose all the internal organs. Any questions thus far? Everyone's good. Okay. All right. So why don't you work on this side, holding it back, and I'll hold it back with my thumbs on this side. All right. Let's go for a little tour. See, we got, just so for an example for everyone else's sake, when we cut this, we got a little off here, and we made a snip into one of the organs here. Okay, this organ happens to be a uterus. Okay, this is a female, so there was a little cut made into this one, and that's from just going a little quick through that part. The body is obviously distended because they have there is some developing young in here, so it did push out on the cavity, so no blame is being placed. Just be careful when you cut through so you don't damage any organs. Okay, and there was also a little. All right, so let's start from the anterior part of the cavity. Okay, the upper part of the cavity here, the pericardial cavity. Peri is the prefix meaning around. Cardial, heart. Okay, so that's the cavity we enter. You can see it's a multi-chambered heart. Okay, there is a much harder ventricle, which is its job is to pump blood throughout the body, and a softer auricle, which allows blood to come back to the heart. Okay, so you have multi-chambered heart. You see the big vessel that is leading up from the anterior part of the heart is the aorta, which is the major blood vessel leaving the heart. Our setup is along these lines, except we have a 4-chambered heart. Here we have a little bit different. It's a little bit of a lower vertebrate, so it's not as developed as us. However, blood leaving the heart to go to the body does leave through a similarly named artery, the aorta. We go down into the abdominal cavity. The largest, most prominent organ that you see here, and it's really large because part of it's hanging under here, is the liver. Okay, it has 3 lobes. Okay, what side is this, right or left?
Right lateral.
Okay, this is the right. Looks like it's on the left, right? But we're looking from the perspective of the animal. Okay, this is the right side. All right, so this is the right lobe. The central lobe is much smaller, and the left lobe. Okay, it's very greasy, very oily. All right, the liver makes a lot of enzymes, one of which is called bile. It's actually a salt, and it is very, very greasy. Okay, so be mindful when you go inside and view that. If this gets down on the tabletop, it's gonna be really, really greasy. We have to use a degreaser to get it off. It's pretty intense. Okay, I'm gonna take the liver and just push it off to the side a little bit on this side. I don't want to cut this yet, but here we have this cord that's here that's dyed yellow is called the common bile duct. Okay, when you hear duct, what do you think? The word duct, D-U-C-T.
Duct tape.
Like duct tape. So what do you use that to? So it's taping a duct. What duct would we tape with the tape like that? Think about it in your house. What's a duct in your house?
Like an airway.
Like an airway. Okay, or it's a conduit. It's some kind of passageway. Okay, like an air conditioning duct would lead from your air conditioner out throughout the house and deliver the air. So here, the common bile duct is the duct that is going to deliver between all the lobes of the liver combined down to the area of the intestines, which are called the duodenum, which we'll get to in a moment. Okay, so hence the common bile duct. It does split. You can see a little evidence of that here. It does split into sides and become like a left and a right, going towards the lobes of the liver. There is a gallbladder. Okay, we have that too. It's a storage for bile. It's located posteriorly here. Later, if we remove the liver, we might be able to see it a little bit better. But it's like a sac-like structure that stores bile while the shark is waiting to use that stuff to digest. Okay, in the current state, it would obviously be nothing in there because the shark is not with us anymore. So there is no bile left in that sac. If we reflect the liver, I might have to. Here, why don't we do this, Ange? Take. All right, and everyone got a chance to see the duct there, right? So let's just snip that. Let's just snip the bile duct right in the middle. Okay, and this is dyed yellow, so you can see this is part of what we call the hepatic portal system, which we'll explain at a later date. Okay, we just want to get a view of the organs here. All right, now when you get your own specimen, you can, at this point, the instruction would be to remove the liver. But since I want to kind of preserve this is the female, the pregnant female, I want to preserve it better. We would cut this out in your dissection. That way you can do the other organs. You can cut it off right at the top so you remember where the liver goes, but remove it so you can see the rest of the anatomy. If I push back on the liver, I see a pretty muscular structure here. This is the stomach. Okay? If later on we can make an incision up and continue this all the way up to the mouth, and if you care to, you could sacrifice the jaw, cut the jaw in half at the middle, push that apart, and then you can see the evidence of the pharynx or the throat area, and it traveling into the esophagus. All right, I could trace that if I took a probe. Give me a blunt end probe. Blunt end probe. If I enter into the mouth and I push the probe in, just like we saw with the perch, if I push this down the middle, I could feel, as I push up on this, I feel it hitting at the top end of the stomach, or the cardiac end of the stomach. Okay, that's right down the middle. I feel the probe pushing up on my finger. All right. If I turned it left or right, where do I go? What chambers do I go? If I turn this and I go out the sides of the throat, that goes into the gill chambers. Okay, so similarly, we can make a section here, even if we sever off the head at that level. If we cut down and we reflect the head back, you will see that same thing that we saw with the perch. Okay, center down into the digestive system, left and right exits to the respiratory system. The architecture that you see here, as we go further through vertebrate anatomy, it's kind of set up for us as we get to. All right, obviously these evolved before us, but the infrastructure is in place that we can now go into a left and right respiratory system. Hence, we have left and right lungs. So from the stomach, okay, and we definitely feel like we have something in here. There's something in our stomach. We will open that later to find out. It feels like it might be a fish. It might be. I feel some bones in there. All right. At the end of it, and the same thing with our stomach. What does our stomach dump into? What's the next organ in line after our stomach?
Intestines.
Our intestines, and it would be the small intestine first. So at the end of the stomach, there is a valve that prohibits flow into the intestine. Okay, we call that the Pyloric Valve. We have a similar thing in our system, and it leads into this little curve of intestine here, which is called the duodenum. Okay, or duodenum. Sometimes you'll hear it pronounced. The correct pronunciation is duodenum. This is the area, similarly in us, where all of the digestive enzymes enter, so they can mix with the contents of the stomach as it gets mechanically digests. All right. Remember, the primary job of the stomach, which I actually didn't say, is for my mechanical type of digestion. A little bit of churning action, okay, some chemical bathing, okay, so with some acids, start to break down the food product that was eaten. And remember, with sharks, they ingest everything whole. Okay, most fish do. So whatever comes down in here needs to get totally broken down to a liquid form as best possible. The only thing that's not going to be broken down to liquid form would be bones. Everything else can be liquefied. Okay, that liquid is called chyme, C-H-Y-M-E. Okay, that's so from the point of the stomach down, it's a fluid. Okay, and then the job of the body is to take back as much of that fluid into it to maintain hydration. So here, enzymes from the bile coming in from the liver, and also fluids from the pancreas, which kind of looks like almost like a piece of gum stuck onto this. This is the pancreas. The pancreas makes pancreatic enzymes, things that break down fats, lipases, things that help break down other carbohydrates. Okay, these are all here, and this also dumps into the duodenum. So you got bile salts, you got pancreatic juices, all flowing into this area, the duodenum. Okay, so it's a very popular area. As it gets all squished together, think of it like you're going through a car wash. Okay, you go through and your car is getting hit by all the fluids. Okay, that's what's happening here. As it travels through that, it gets squeezed down into this organ, which is called the spiral intestine. Okay, it's one long tube-like structure, and as you can see, it has a spiral interior. You can see by the evidence of the blood vessels around the outside. This is like a giant corkscrew of an intestine that goes down from top to bottom, and as food goes through here, the absorption of nutrients is going to take place, and the compaction of the solid waste, whatever is a waste product, that would be compacted towards the end. Okay, that area is called the rectum. Okay, the rectum is at the end of the line here, and the opening here, right at the end, is the anus, and that dumps out. So you've went on a tour of the digestive system from top to bottom. Okay, you can apply that as you see it on your. Good with digestion. Everyone good with the heart and that part of the circulation. You see here in dye, the yellow is the hepatic portal system. So you can see here stuff that's getting absorbed. That happens at the upper end of the intestine. It's got to get processed and transferred up, and the liver has to help detoxify things that it ingests. Remember, if you're ingesting a whole organism, there's stuff in it that might be toxic. You know, anyone, you know, you probably heard that if you eat a lot of fish that is, you know, from certain areas of the world, there could be mercury toxicity if you eat too much fish, because mercury, as a heavy metal, is taken into fish, into their muscle, and if you eat it, if you eat a lot of it, you can then in turn get it. So there's got to be something in the body to help detoxify and try to clear things out. That's the job of the liver. All right, so you have this system which allows for that process. The red is cardiovascular. All right, so you can see here that there's a lot of absorption going on. There's one of the jobs of the blood is to accept the nutrients as they come in and then deliver them through the system. Now, what you see back here is evidence of the female reproductive system. Okay, up here, lateral to the stomach, is the ovary. Okay, the ovary. What's the job of an ovary? To make what?
Eggs.
Makes eggs. Here, there's nothing left. It's just basically, it looks very glandular. There's, if I feel it, there's a little bit of hard tissue in there. That would be maybe the next generation of egg follicles being developed in there. But those eggs, as they develop, pass down this tube called the oviduct. Okay, remember, there's duct again. Okay, pathway. And then what's the next? Girls, you can probably answer it better than the boys. What's after eggs to come down your tube? Where do they wind up? What's the organ that is next? The uterus. All right. Now with the shark, this is bilateral. Okay, you can see that. Okay, and going down on either side as well is an oviduct, and then into the uterus. Okay, those both commonly open down into what's called the urogenital pore, and that would be the exit of the reproductive system. Okay, in the same place as the cloaca. All right, that's it for today. We'll pick up. If you pull the liver back out of the way, you can and you could expose the reproductive tract. Now, as if this is a female, we have a few things that we want to view. Okay, if I retract the liver back, I can see higher up in the abdominal cavity, I have the ovary. All right, the ovary sits higher. If this was a male, this is where the testis is. Okay, it would have testes, one on either side. All right, testis is singular. Okay, ovary is singular. Ovaries is. Here we have an egg machine. All right, this is going to make eggs out. There is a duct attached to that called the oviduct, okay, which will deliver eggs down to the incubation part, which is the uterus. Ladies, you have the same architecture as the shark. You have ovary, oviduct, which aka fallopian tube, and uterus. Okay, at the end of the uterus would be a vaginal canal, which would empty out. Okay, and it would pass into the urogenital opening. Okay, see how it connects here? There's the exit of the reproductive system. Okay, now this is bilateral, so you have it on the right, and behind on this side you would see it on the left. I'd have to move this stuff out of the way. Ooh, we busted open this side of the ovary. You can see some stuff in there. So you have all the same stuff on this, okay? Ovary, oviduct, ovary, oviduct, and uterus. Okay, now this one's already busted open, so we have a pair of scissors there. Okay, just simply, I'm going to use the sharper side. I'm just going to cut the wall, and you see how thin wall this is, comparatively speaking, but very, very stretchable. Okay, this is very similar to a uterus that you'd find in any vertebrate. It's not very thick-walled, per se. It's surprisingly relatively thin, comparatively, but extremely flexible. okay? Because it's got to hold on to the young, all right? Think about girls. If someday you decide that you want to be a mom and you have a baby, what's the average size baby? Like 7, 8 pounds? Imagine that sitting inside you in a sack. It's got to be very stretchable, okay? So, well, you might change your mind. All right, so I'm just going to continue to open this uterus. All right, and we'll see if we have anything in development. Well, what we have here, unfortunately and unfortunately, you can start to see how the egg has started to take on a little bit of the form of a body. It was in the process. This was fertilized. It just never made it past an early stage. Okay, so this was all developing. You can see evidence of cellularity beginning. That's not just the egg. So you had this starting to go through the process. It was already filled out. The body was starting to reproduce. All right, so it was an early stage. Okay, but you could see that this is the egg itself. If you saw them, are round. Okay, they're just like we think about eggs. They're ovoid. Okay, here this is definitely has been through some stage of development. Okay, unfortunately we didn't see a full Monty here, but if I could find one that does, we will certainly be happy to share that. All right. So for reproducting of the female, is everyone comfortable with the parts there? Those 3 parts are the important ones. Just wanted to point out that as I pull these organs to the side here, and I flip the liver out, you can see that if you remember back to early lessons we talked about, we said that in a coelom, or the body cavity we call the coelom, there is an attachment to the outer body wall somehow. It's a tube within a tube, right? So we have an attachment at the anterior and the posterior for the tube, the mouth, the anus, and then inside where everything sits, it sits within a pretty much, think of it like a giant sausage. Everything's kind of sitting inside the casing. All right, so this is the casing. You can see here in the lower part of the system. See this thin wall here of connective tissue? It's almost like it's translucent. Okay, this is called the peritoneum. Okay, this holds everything together. Okay, it's very easy. I can just, if I stretch it, just poke through it with my finger. Okay, it's not very cellular. Okay, it's almost like saran wrap in a way. Okay, it's very thin. Okay, very thin. It's a sheet of tissue. All right, and that holds everything. So the intestine isn't just flopping around inside. It holds it loosely to the body wall, so it kind of stays in the same spot. Okay, so as I pull this around, I can separate this theoretically. If I clean the whole way up, I can separate all this from the body wall. Although I don't want to do that fully yet, because you can see some nice evidence of the blood vessels and stuff running up and down this, which I do want to get you a chance to look at. Okay. One thing that isn't pictured super well, up at the ceiling or the dorsal aspect of the abdominal cavity are the kidneys. They're kind of long. They travel along at the deepest location here, like right kind of near where the spine is. And you can see the dark tissue that's in there, right in there. That's the kidney. It's behind this peritoneal wall. Similarly, in your kidneys sit outside your peritoneum. All right, so that's why sometimes it's dangerous if you get a kidney infection if it travels up, because it could then encapsulate your peritoneum and you can get a systemic infection very easily because it's not protected. The kidneys aren't as protected. So. But that's what you see up there.